We'll just wait for these people to log on.
Sure, okay.
Hello, Howard. How are you? Kenneth, welcome. Um, remember to share so we can get people in here. Mario, what's up? Welcome back. Jay, good night. Mr. Makuk, what's going on, sir? Darren, you up? I see you on the weekends now. It's great. Chrissy, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Yeah, you guys try and share so we can get the numbers up and start. I'm not looking for big numbers. I just want our regulars to get in and then we can go. Marvin, welcome. King Royalty, greetings. Anthony Chili Rose,
Mhm.
you free tonight on a Saturday night? Your social life slowing down, Anthony? Anthony, there's women here too. What are you talking about, gentlemen? We got women in here too. Chrissy is here. Trudy is in the background producing. So you better get your arguments straight, Anthony. Go. Let's see if we get 20 people in here before I start. Call your friends and your cousin and your uncle and the little man down the road with two goats. Call him, tell him this is important too. Korean, big up.
I did my part and forwarded it to my Facebook page.
Oh, good. That's great. So we will have some people on. For us, it doesn't matter. We have a core set of people that join us. We service them and help them, and then people can do the rewatch the to repost it
Sure.
and get the information they need.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and there's my
Quality.
mom. My mom is always a faithful uh,
Oh,
supporter of what we're doing.
well, hello, Miss
Mom,
Hammond.
you need to call Auntie Irene and them and tell them their favorite nephew is on. Um, my mom is fresh off her cruise
Oh,
with her brother, the Love of Harmony cruise. So I'm pretty sure she may be a little hungover or something from the party.
she may deny that.
I know she will, but I got the receipts.
There you go.
Yeah, people been telling me how much fun she's been having, so it's good. Okay, folks. So welcome everyone, and the people who are new to us. This is iGoat Chat, and we talk all things small ruminants and small farmers issues. and our objective is to share information and help farmers deal with the everyday issues of running a small farm operation. Um, Tonight, we're going to talk about the big challenges in goat production. We have with us Robert Spencer, courtesy of Farmer to Farmer via USAID, right?
Yes.
Right, Robert? Yeah. And Robert is his specialty is small ruminants, goat, sheep, and rabbit rearing. What's the term for rabbit rearing? Is it rabbit? What is it? I don't know what it's called.
I never did get that technical. Rabbitry
Okay,
is,
rabbit tree or something, right? Anyways, that's his specialty. So he's been to Jamaica. He's currently in Jamaica. He's been hosting, helping, co-hosting with us these value added workshops, goat goat products, goat milk value added products. So he's with us until Tuesday,
Wednesday, yes.
Wednesday. Yeah. So tonight he's joining us to share his experience. How many trips you've made to Jamaica so far, Robert?
Well, this is only my third. Yeah.
Okay,
I,
that's a lot
yeah.
compared to other people. So he's gonna share with us his experience, what he sees as the biggest challenges in Jamaica when it comes to small ruminants, specifically goat production. So, Robert, if you can tell them a little about yourself and your years of expertise and how many countries you've traveled in the world, including
Oh,
Jamaica.
good.
Take it.
Thank you, everybody. I want to say a special thank you to Mr. Larmond. I visited his goat farm last time, and he's given me credit for the visit, and I enjoyed it as well. So in 2019 was my first time in Jamaica right before COVID, and we looked at meat goat production then. And about a month ago, I was here and down in the southern half of the country. We visited probably about 15 to 20 goat farms, if not more. Thank you, Miss Rohard. And they're trying to keep me from going back to the States. So I started raising goats myself back in 2000, shortly after then, because I was looking as a small farm specialist for Alabama A&M University on seeing what small farmers want to do. And my boss tried to tell me it was row crops and cattle. I said, no, not on 10, 5, whatever acres. And so there was an interest even then in meat goats in the US. It was just starting to catch on. And then eventually the dairy goats. And it got really big up until probably about 2012 in the US. And it's dwindled down a good bit in the US. So my nickname in the U.S. is Goat Man. Everybody called me Goat Man because I knew I could tell them things about goats they didn't know. And then I looked into the hair sheep. I looked into the rabbits. And as Mr. Larmond corrected us, I'm not even try and pronounce that, logomorphology for rabbit production. But I've traveled all over the world for goat production. I've been to Burma 3 times to do everything from value added production with the goat milk, making the soaps and the lotions, to look at their marketing opportunities with meat goats. And I finally told them, you have a great market. You can't argue with your market. You have an export market to China and some of the other states, and you have an import market in the U.S. I mean, excuse me, in Myanmar. So I said, you're just going to have to grow from within. There's no marketing anywhere else at this time. I've been to Haiti about 13 times, and some of the stuff, most of it was rabbits, some of it was goats, and some of it was food safety and the processing. So let's see where else. El Salvador, I've been. And then 2019, I also went to Ghana, Africa, and visited there. And again, it was value added production. They didn't really milk their goats, but value added production, making of soap and lotion. And of course, they got the best stuff you can ask for in making lotion and soap. They've got several good quality oils. And I was just really impressed with what they're already doing. I showed them how to make lotion, and they were all excited with that. So that's what we've been focusing on this past week. Is we took one day and addressed how to make goat milk cheese. It didn't work out at first, but 3 days later, with the help of the ladies, we got going on it and we got it done. Wasn't the best cheese, but it was still cheese. And then the second day I worked with Trudy, we addressed the hot process soap, which in turn can be converted to the liquid soap. And as she found out, it's about a 6 to 8 hour process. First of making the six of the hot process soap, and then another hour to hour and a half to mix in the liquid, which we used half goat milk and half water, just because I told her, I said, let's experiment with that combination first and see what we can come up with. And then the third day, we kind of took a break. Thursday, we took time to look at making the lotion. Excuse me, Friday, we made the lotion. And then we finished up making the cheese and we finished up the hot process because, like I said, the hot process, you start out and 6 hours later, it's ready to add the liquid. And we just didn't have that much time on a Wednesday. So that's kind of get my days mixed up there. But that's what we've been doing because, and I'll be honest with you. Go ahead, Ray.
No, I'm just joining in to say that to let them know that we record everything, and I will put it together, edit it, and post it so
Okay.
people have access to the information. Um, so yeah, you guys been going hard at it, and thank you. We appreciate the time and your expertise.
Well, thank you.
Um,
We've been having fun.
yeah. So let's dig into tonight. What we're here for tonight is you said you gave me three things, the top biggest challenges you see in Jamaica.
Sure.
And you made a point to say it's not unique to Jamaica.
Right.
You have experiences in other countries. So
Yeah.
let's start with the big one. And
Yeah.
this one we've been talking about in Jamaica forever. And there's no relief on this one. So we're talking about prairie larceny, goat thief.
There you go. Yeah.
So
That's
tell us your experience and what you think could be a solution.
well. That's a good question on the solution. But this is all based on my last visit back in February into the 1st of March on all the farms we visited down in Gutters, and down in Mandeville, south of Mandeville. And I basically asked every farmer we went to visit, what's your three biggest problems? And there was a consistency of theft, goat theft, parasites, and genetics, access to new genetics. So I told several people the theft, that's kind of unusual in many other places. But the theft here in Jamaica, I was surprised how many people face that because they were talking about people cutting through the fences on the back of their property. People coming in there at night where they couldn't be seen and stealing things. And some of these people even had dogs. And so it's really sad. Of course, they said we've tried to get the law enforcement involved and they only do so much. Uh, that's a problem. I said, well, do you have a neighborhood watch? And maybe some neighbors that can get out at night and kind of watch for these problems. And their response was, and I understand, well, it doesn't occur often enough that we can get the neighbors involved in this on a regular basis. But they said when it does happen, especially for the small farmers that have 8 or 10 goats, 6 goats, when they lose most of them, that's it. They have to reconsider whether they want to stay in the goat business. And somebody was telling me they'll even leave the collar and rope behind and take the goat.
Yeah, prairie larceny, specifically goat stealing, has been a major problem in Jamaica for a very long time, as long as
Mm,
I can remember.
wow.
And and it's I think it's a low hanging fruit that the authorities don't really put a lot of
Right.
resources into it. So as if you visit Jamaica many times, you use the streets or drive down and you see goats on the sidewalk, all that stuff. So they're there and people will grab them, or if you have quality animals, then you have people who organize to take those animals.
Hmm.
I personally think goat goat stealing in Jamaica is an organized crime
Hmm.
because when they when they come in and steal from a productive farm, they take a lot of animals.
Wow.
There's one guy that lost like 30 something animals last year or
My goodness.
something. So that's a pretty organized operation. So I refer to it as organized crime because one, they they scope out the operation, they know the movements, they know how to get in, how to get out. And when I say organized crime, I'm not talking about the mafia or whatever. I'm talking about people in the community or you or somebody who works for you relay information to somebody else or cooperate with them in order for this to happen. And
Interesting.
most of the times, this is what happens. You know, somebody you're working that's working for or with you, cooperate with somebody else to give them inside information or tell
Hmm.
them how to get in, when to go, and that's how a lot of people lose their animals. You know, and don't get me wrong, there's the isolated incidents of somebody see a goat, a ram goat or a buck that they like, and they think, oh, I'm gonna keep a party in 2 weeks. I'm gonna take that ram and
Hmm.
put it in a pot, right? But for the most part, the ones you hear about all the time is a number of animals they take all at once. And they come prepared, as Darren says right there, they come prepared, whether it's they're fully armed or they have equipment to cut wires or, you know, um, hacksaw to cut locks and all that stuff. They come prepared, you know.
Hmm.
So I feel like it should be treated as organized crime, you know.
I, I agree. They've got to do something. The law enforcement has got to do something. So let me ask you this: do you think it's most they're stealing for breeding stock, for meat, or both?
No, they're stealing for quick return, cash waited for something
Yeah.
else. And this situation, people will steal an amazing buck and either they hide it somewhere for themselves or they sell it to somebody else and keep it hidden, you know. But for the most part, when they're stealing animals, they just go in and they take 10, 20 animals. There's one incident where they took like 30 something goats out of a station wagon car.
Wow.
Police stopped the car and there was 30 some animals in the car, and when they really want it, like Robinson Goat Farm will say right here, they will ambush farmers in the field at gunpoint and take their animals. And if you put up a resistance, even if you don't, but they'll kill you.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they will
that's
definitely.
what.
Yeah, it's a dangerous situation right now when it comes to them taking goats,
Right.
and the reason is that there is no hard repercussions. It's for them to go to court and get sentenced is light.
Yeah.
The government needs to change the laws because the predial larceny laws were written so long ago that they don't hold any weight. I don't even think livestock is actually mentioned it as
Wow.
you know as a line item that you can get charge for. I think it's a broad brush that's written forever, and they need to change it. There is legislation being presented at this time to change it. However, I don't know how long it's going to take. You know, it needs a comprehensive, holistic approach where the meat shops have to prove where they get their animals.
Mhm.
There is rules and laws on the books that if you're traveling with live animal, you must have a receipt and that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, people need to show where they get the meat.
Mhm.
Because if
That's
somebody's moving 20, 30 animals, it's got to go somewhere. Somebody
right.
must know where it's going, you
Yeah,
know?
you're affecting somebody's livelihood too. I mean,
Exactly.
it's a should be
It
a
is
serious problem on
it
livelihood.
is a serious, serious problem. And for me, it's like on one hand, the government is saying, yes, we take radial arsenic serious. We're serious about agriculture. However, there's no real tangible um, advancement in their approach to radial arsenic.
Right. So yeah, that's going to be up to the people to contact their politicians and say, hey, we've got to do something about this. As the industry grows, it's going to discourage people from expanding. That's what one fellow told me. He said, I'm not going to expand because if I lose these, I haven't lost as much. But if I expand, I could lose more.
Yeah, talking to your representatives, I don't think it means anything
Hmm.
because Jamaica is still a third world country with a high level of corruption in governing, from the top all the way down to the counselor on the street in your neighborhood. There's a,
Hmm.
and everybody knows it.
Hmm.
Everybody knows it. So I don't know if talking to them is going to make much of a difference. I think it's going to take organized. Here's my belief. These guys will only react if you have voting power.
True.
That's the only time they'll react is if you have voting power, which means it's going to take an organized collective to say, hey, I'm 10,000 strong. So if you don't do anything about it, I can influence the 10,000 people to make a
There you
decision
go.
come election day,
That's good.
you know? But it's in Jamaica, it's so hard because handouts rule the game.
Hmm.
Handouts rule the game. Election time, people come, they give people 5,000, 10,000, a meal package, whatever they do, and they buy the vote. So it's hard. It's going to take divine intervention for them to really, or it's going to take some, unapologetic revolutionary minister to say, yo, I may lose my life over this, but my father, my grandfather is a farmer and I want this done.
Hmm.
That's what it's going to take. But sometimes by the time they get to that level, they're already corrupted. So,
Well, and the
so
goat's
the, yeah,
already.
so perennial larceny is huge. I don't know what the solution is at this point. I've been telling our community here that people should just be vigilant. We've been talking about security procedures, camera, dog, level of security, because I believe that if you have a system that deters the, the thieves from coming in,
Mhm.
then you have a better chance of protecting your operation. So
I
it
agree.
takes some investment. Not everybody can afford to do lights, camera,
Mhm.
and all that stuff. However, yeah, you have a point when they say community watch, but sometimes these communities are the same set of people them that you know tell people what's going on and how to do it.
Sure, sure. You could
Yeah,
heard the
you know what I
same.
mean.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
same.
and I also, because they're killing farmers, I also implore people to register their business, their farm as a business, get compliant, all that stuff, so they can qualify for a fire.
Hmm.
So in the event that their life is threatened, they can protect themselves or have a fighting chance of protecting themselves. Having a firearm does not deter anybody from coming after your money or your livestock or whatever. However, if your life is threatened, you have a chance. I
Hmm.
believe strongly in deterrence.
Yeah.
Do not. I don't want them coming. I don't want them trying at all. So whatever I need to put up, whatever signs I need to put up, whatever I need to show that it's going to be hard for you to come in here. So don't even bother, because most of them are lazy. They don't want to do a lot of work to get in. But if they
Right.
get the impression, oh, this is going to be hard, then they won't bother. They'll move on. So I believe strongly that's the approach most farmers should take, is
I, I,
deterrence,
I agree.
deterrence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about parasites.
Oh,
Parasites. So you've been to Jamaica. This is your third visit. Before you have visited a lot of farms. What is the parasite situation from your perspective?
sure. The problem I ran into is the gastrointestinal parasites,
Hmm.
which we're going to assume is a barber pole worm in most cases. We did hear about some problems of external parasites, lice, and of course they knew what to do for that. You just use some powder or spray on and get rid of those. But the gastrointestinal parasites, it's not just a problem in Jamaica. And they say in some parts, oh, well, it's just in the warm climates. The entire southern half of the U.S. has the problem. So it's not just a warm climate problem. And people, it was interesting to see what their solutions were. Most of them had started to learn about the FOMATA system, where you look at their eyelid and see what color it is and if they need wormed or not. I was pleased to see that. And then other people didn't understand you can use a warmer till it doesn't work, but you better come up with a plan to switch to another brand or type of warmer, which is basically the clear warmers, the white warmers, and things like that. I don't know what you have readily available here in Jamaica, but one of the things that I heard that really impressed me was uh, quite a few or several of the farmers said they don't turn their goats out till about 10 o'clock in the morning. And I thought
Yes.
about that, and then, yeah, that makes sense because the parasites are on the wet grass. The worms are climbing up to about 6 inches to lay their eggs. And so the people that were taking them out after 10 o'clock, they had less worm problems than the people that were just letting them run loose. So, like I said, people get caught up in that, especially here. But in the southern U.S., it's a horrible problem. And it used to be they'd say, oh, when it gets cold, the worms go away. That's not the case in the U.S. anymore. And of course, I saw the same problem in Guatemala and Myanmar. They had some problem with them. But of course, it's a more arid climate in Myanmar, so it wasn't quite as bad. But uh, it's a thing that basically takes management to deal with it.
Yeah, we've had Dr. Dahlia Ryan on the show,
Yes.
and she did a whole show on deworming and the different deworming techniques. And she gave us a new cutting edge new technique that they developed in Australia, that she's suggesting or recommending now, which is the combination deworming. We've been doing it ever since we spoke to her, and we've had good success with it. If you guys don't know know what the combination deworming is, that's using two different type of dewormers at once, which is not mixing it. So if you're using ivermectin, which is an injectable, and then you can use Safeguard, which is a drench, and you give them back to back at the same time, and you do it for 3 days in a row. And all dewormers should be administered based on weight.
Yeah.
If you do not understand how to do it, consult your vet. I am not a vet. I only
Mm.
follow veterinarian instructions. So, what we do is we do the combination and we do it for 3 days and let that work and we have success. So, for us, our management system, the animals are on fresh pasture every day, a fresh
Yeah.
paddock every day. So we don't really run into major worming issues. But there's always an isolated animal that just can't keep up. So
Yeah.
there's animals that we have to deworm, and that's is how we do it. And so the approach we take. I don't I'm not I don't know in Jamaica how big of deworming a worming problem we have, because most farmers let their animals out to graze and they go to different areas every day.
Right.
However, if people that do controlled grazing like ourselves will run into that problem more likely than
Mm.
the guys who send their animals or just take them out to an open field and let them
Right.
graze and take them back, right? But people who do organized grazing, um, they have a higher chance of ending up with a heavy worm load in their herd.
Right.
I suggest, I'm telling people, I suggest rotational grazing that we do. If you have the land that you use to graze, if it's yours, um, if you have control over the land that you're using, and you can use it according to how you would like, rotational grazing is the key to keeping your worm load down. And another technique we use is we have two cows that follow the goats,
Yeah.
and because the the worm infect the goats, is the cow is a dead end host for
Hmm.
that worm, and vice versa. The worm that affects the cows is a dead end host for the goats. So we use the cows for pasture management and for parasite control, um, internal parasite control.
That's a good
So
plan.
yeah, that's based on some research and consultation that we've done with different people and listen to the science, right? We just listen to the science. So in the event that somebody has a heavy worm load in their herd, what do you suggest is the most
Well,
important thing to be?
sure, it's going to take, like you said, several things. Everything from pasture management, if they can rotate their goats from one past the other next day, not turning their goats out till after 10 o'clock and bringing them in at night before the dew sets in the grass again. And then using, I call the technique with the worm you're talking about, the double whammy.
Yeah,
You hit that parasites, because the parasites build up tolerance to those chemicals. So
yeah,
you use the double dewormer and go back and use it again. I heard you say it was 3 days. I see somebody says they do it one day and then 6 days later. Whatever works for you, that's fine. And then there's two other things. We visited several farms where their goats never hit the ground. Their goats are always in an elevated situation.
yeah. The
That's not for everybody.
intensive
Yeah.
operation. Yeah,
Yeah, that's not for everybody because we know it costs money to build the barns.
Yeah.
And then, we used to have this saying there back in the day, 10% of your problems, 10% of
No
your goats are 90% of your problems.
problems. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so, unfortunately, even though we're attached to our goats, Frosty and Snowflake and this and that and the other, we love them. We've raised them since they were babies. But if they keep on having to be rewormed, they're the ones that are putting parasite resistant or para- chemical resistant parasites on the ground. And so you just sometimes you got to decide maybe that goat needs to be somebody else's dinner guest, or maybe you want to process it for a Christmas party, a birthday party, or wedding, or something like that. And let them be useful rather than causing problems in your herd. So it's a combination. It's a management combination.
Yeah. The reason we do the 3 days is based on the fact that it takes 4 days for the eggs
Hmm.
to hatch.
Yeah.
So we continuously try to kill off whatever is missed the first day, whatever is dropped the second day, third day. So
Hmm.
that's the science behind it, according to
Yes.
Dr. O'Brien. That's the science
Yes.
behind it. And
And-
it's the same approach for the cows in the pasture. They're always 4 days behind the goats for that
Oh,
reason.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So um everything, our approach to all that is based on the research, the science was proven to work, and if something new comes tomorrow, we're gonna try it.
There you go.
We're not scared to try new things, and if we see it not working, we switch it up or we go back to what was working. We're not scared to try new things or to go back to what works. I know sometimes it could be challenging for guys, but thankfully we have someone like Cruz who understands that to be successful, willing to adjust and change things.
Yes. I
Yeah.
agree. And then there's the other fact that people say, oh, we need a new wormer, we need a new chemical out there. I have to remind them, do you know how much it costs, or do you have any idea how much it costs to produce that new chemical? Because it's got to go through development, go through training. There's all that. So there's really not much in the way of new chemicals coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, and it seems that North America is behind on these new dewormers. I know in Australia and New Zealand, I think they already have a a
Right.
dewormer that's a combination dewormer that has
Hmm.
both ingredients in it, both chemicals in it. I don't know when that'll be approved in North America. Hopefully sooner than later. However, I still strongly believe that management, pasture management, parasite management, holistic approach to dealing with it is the better option.
Yes.
And ensure that you take the animals that are giving you problems, take them out of production. Sometimes it's hard. You have some nice animals that just you just like, man, I wish I could. This animal will just work in the system, but they don't. So you just have to let them go, call them out of it. You know.
And that's more better than giving them lots more chemicals because number
Yeah.
one, those dewormers cost money. Number two, this is a food animal. Excuse me. Whether it's dairy goats or meat goats, this is a food animal. We don't want to contaminate somebody's dinner plate with dewormers.
Yes. And for us, even the milking program, we know that deworming an animal takes them out of production for like 15, 16 days.
Right, right.
Yeah, which is not good,
No,
especially if it's a high yielding female. That's a hit on the program. So we try to keep them healthy. The best way is to make sure that you manage your pastures and your nutrition properly. That makes hardy animals that can have some resistance to worm load.
right.
Because based on the research and stuff, every animal, every goat has some level of worm load in them.
Yeah.
Some of them do well on it, some of them can't manage it at all. We'd love to have a whole herd of animals that just never need to get dewormed. As far as we have around, we have a few animals on the farm that's never been dewormed a day
Mhm.
since we got them. Never,
Wow.
you know. I'm sure Cruz is here on the thing. He can list them by numbers or nicknames, and they've never been dewormed. Maddie's never been dewormed. Number 4 never been dewormed. Number 5 never been dewormed. There's a whole bunch of them that's never been dewormed. Number 38, I think that big looking mother never been dewormed a day. And they always look amazing, always producing, always giving us lovely animals, lovely offsprings. So we'd love to, get the whole herd like that. But in the grand scheme of things, I was on a workshop a few weeks ago, a small room in this workshop. So I was telling the lady that we have 130 goats, and any given moment we may have 4 or 5 goats that we're deworming. And she said, "You don't have a problem." Because I was like, man, I wish I could just have no goats to deworm. She's like, you have 130 goats, and you want 3 or 4 to deworm at any given moment. You don't have a problem.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
But but Anthony Chili Rose, he points out something that's true. Don't deworm those animals that are parasite resistant or parasite tolerant because
Yes.
yeah.
Only deworm as needed. So if there's animals, lots of animals on the farm that we always call them when we do the audit every month. We're like, oh, these goats are borderline, based on the FAMACHA score, but they never lose conditioning.
Right.
It's in that state, looking good all the time. Their eyelids, it's never red or really dark pink. They're just always on that what we call the borderline, and
Hmm.
that's their state. That's
Yeah.
how they thrive. They do very well in that state, so we don't touch them. We just
There
leave
you
them
go.
be. We only deworm the ones that needs deworming, the ones that you see that they're losing conditioning and they start moving slow, get off feed or whatever it is. So we deworm those.
Yes.
Um, Let me see if there's any other comments here. Biosecurity is a key factor for parasite management. Yeah, biosecurity. I think if you buy animals that comes on the farm, the quarantine is important, very very important, because if the animal comes with worm, then they're introducing a
Hmm.
different type of worm or a worm with a different resistance level to your farm. So you want to quarantine them and make sure you get those, deworm them, whatever you need to do to get those worms out of them, so they're not, planting them on your pastures. So if you bring better worms on your farm and they're resistant to the dewormers that you're using, you're in a lot of trouble.
Hmm.
You know.
You
Go ahead.
Oh, you've got to isolate that new animal. I would say isolate it for at least 30 days. Make
Yeah.
sure you don't have any problems. Because I remember several years ago, I decided I wanted to buy some Spanish goats, and I bought one, and the guy had told me, I will not sell it to you for 30 days. He said, I'm going to go back, treat it. It had pink eye. And he said, pink eye, we're treating it, we're isolating it. So after 30 days, it may have been 45, he sold me the goat. I put that goat in a pen, 6 foot tall pen, trying to keep that goat isolated from my animals. That goat went over the 6 foot wall, got in with my herd, and my whole herd had pink eye.
Wow. That
Yes.
sounds like the goat we call Maddox. Maddox will jump anytime, any barrier if she can get a running start.
Yeah.
If she can get a running start, she'll jump it.
There's always
Um,
one.
yeah. So here Terrence says you cannot deworm out of a worm animal. You can only feed out of it. Yeah. So I guess he's saying proper nutrition will keep your
Hmm.
animals healthy so they can fight off a worm problem. Because I know that's true. That's factual because the last month of pregnancy for goats is when their immune system is the weakest. And if there is a worm issue with that goat, the worms will take over in that last
Okay.
month. And we've had that a couple of times.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a question. What about the goats that are enclosed and they need to get worms? Still, they still get worms. There is the possibility of them getting worms, but the exposure to the eggs and that is less, a lot less. And if you have proper sanitation in your goat house, in the your barn, your goat pen, then you lessen the chance of them getting reinfected after you deworm them because the worms need place to reproduce, and that means if your ground is clean and there's nothing there and the goats are not eating off the ground, then you shouldn't have a problem. And if you're cut the grass that you're cutting, if you're not cutting it from areas that's being grazed on a regular basis, then you shouldn't have a problem. If you're cutting from where goats graze every day or very regular, then you're bringing worm to the ones in the pen.
Yeah.
So that's the situation. Um, see here.
And Darren Lamont.
Sometimes the farmer take worm to the goats. Yeah, exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, if you do cut and carry from a grazing paddock or pasture that animals are grazing, goats are grazing, you can infect your herd and the goats in the pen accordingly. I can't find nothing to feed my boar. He's so picky. Please suggest something other than Mombasa grass and hog slip. Okay, Robinson. Here's a question for you. What do you go? What does the? Where's the buck from? Which area of the country is it from? Your area? Is it? What is the buck usually eat? To everybody here, try to feed your animals what's available to you in your area. Get accustomed to eating what is readily available around you, so you have a better chance of feeding your animals. Do not go 10, 15 miles to go get you know what they call it, the special grass or bush or whatever it is. If Lucina is not in your area, don't feed your goats Lucina. Don't go travel 10, 20 miles to get Lucina or bread nut or whatever it is. Do not try to get them to eat what is around you. If it's the quick stick, the Rosidia, if it's China, if it is whatever it is around you that they'll eat, try to get them used to eating that. That way you'll always have that available to you.
Yeah.
That is my suggestion, you know. So if you observe the animal, try different things with them, with the buck Robinson, see what he eats and try to, stick with that.
Well, I guess my
Terrence,
question.
yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. What's your question?
Well, my question to him would be: is he supplementing the feed with grain? That's going to be important. The goat's not eating, right?
Yeah, goats should always have dry matter, grass, shrubs, leaves, whatever, have that available to them every day. Grain is just a supplement. Terrence Johnson is he's like a very experienced goat farmer. So when he makes a comment, I always take note. He says, Is the buck in top condition? If so, you don't have a problem. And if he eats one thing, condition says it all. There you go. So if the goat is in great condition, then he's eating. He's eating something to keep him in condition. Hope it's not too much grain. Um, yes, Anthony. Be consistent and feed what's around you. Our goats at Carver Ranch will always be eating guinea grass, quick stick, china, and those things because that's what's around us. We are not going to stray away from it, and we're not going to travel 20 miles or whatever it is to go find lucina or bread nut or none of that. We're not doing it. Every grass, everything the goats eat 5 minutes away, 2 minutes away from the goat house. That's how we feed the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to summarize the parasites, if you keep up your nutrition, you give the animals a better chance of fighting off worms. And just be mindful of your management, pasture management, and keeping your surroundings the goat house clean and out of, and do not put them in freezing paddock.
Yeah, it's a total
Um,
management system.
yeah, it's you got to take a look at it from all angles in order for it to work. You know, here Darren says he has a full blood boar buck that only eats hay and grains. He looks like $1 million. There you go, consistent feeding, and the animal will eat that every day and be happy with it. All right, let's talk about the expansion and genetics. That was the third thing you mentioned that you see
Right. And that was
the
interesting
challenge.
conversation at the farms.
Hmm.
Uh, I saw a lot more bucks this visit boar goats than I did 3 years ago.
Hmm.
So I guess my
We have
question would be,
there's a there's an explanation for that.
okay,
So exactly 3 years ago, to be honest, about Nutrimix and I think Hypro, the two big feed companies, started to import semen into the country, and they went on to a big promotion and marketing of new genetics via artificial
okay,
insemination. So there has been, now you're seeing the fruits of all those AI procedures 3 years later, because the animals, the ones that were born in 2020, now they're mature bucks in 2021, 2022. So now you see more of these amazing looking offsprings from AI.
hmm,
However, that's still just 50%, right? We're trying to get the government to move to importation of live animals so
right,
we can speed up the improvement of the genetics, because
yeah,
at this point it's still 50%.
okay. 'Cause That was a
Uh,
conversation.
uh, yeah, go ahead.
That was a conversation I had with Rada last time I was here. What is the government going to be able to do to help with this? And they said that, well, that we're working on that. We plan to move forward. But yeah, because I had to ask my question, okay, how are we going to do this, introduce these new genetics? Ideally, the highest conception rate will come from bringing bucks from overseas and introduce them. And if we can't get bucks from overseas, go to the other side of Jamaica, maybe find some bucks. And then artificial insemination, that's probably going to be our next best choice and more easily done because the government, I'm not talking about just the Jamaican government, but governments do not want to introduce new or risk introducing disease into their country. So artificial insemination, I talked about that with several farmers, but most of them said the same thing I did. Your success rate tends to be very low. However, when you're
Yes.
trying to do energetics, new genetics, that may be our best option.
Well, yes, there is AI, artificial insemination, and then there's embryo transplants.
Right.
So between those two, if we can get better stuff from artificial insemination, that could
Hmm.
speed up the process. Right now, there's varying data on what the success rate is, the average success rate. Sometimes I hear it's in the 6% percentile. Sometimes it's 70, sometimes it's down to 40,
Yeah.
35. So I don't know. I think there needs to be proper data collection to see what time of year is the most successful. There's people who've done AI in the spring when it's cooler, or over the winter months when it's cooler, and have better success than when it's done in the summer. So, you know, they need proper data collection needs to be done to assess to say, okay,
Yeah.
AI will only be done between August and March or
Yeah.
April, right? Because we have better success rate when it's cooler than the summer months when it's really hot. So I think that's something for Dr. Young from Nutramix. Thinks she's had the best success rate when it comes to artificial insemination. Her and her team's been doing an amazing job. Um, the other factor to it is getting farmers to have proper record keeping.
Hmm.
The improvement of this genetics improvement can be tracked, can be measured, and be preserved.
I agree.
Yeah, if there's no proper record keeping and data collection on where we're at when these when this AI process takes place, then we don't know how we're improving. We don't know. Well, I guess it's just gonna be based on looks. But I would rather have real data,
Hmm.
you know, to know that okay, we were here 5 years ago. Now we're here when it comes to quality or improvement in quality genetics. How many of whatever buck from the US is in Jamaica now, the percentage that we can find in animals. And the ideal situation is to have live animals, but that's going to be a big challenge based on
Yeah.
the biosecurity risk.
I agree.
Um,
But you have a big blessing here in Jamaica we don't have in the US and probably not in many countries. You have the feed companies that are trying to help with improving genetics. And nowhere else I've been have we heard that stated like I've heard it here. That's a true blessing.
yeah, Jamaica is, as much as a lot of farmers, lack of better word, is complain about things or ask for certain things. Jamaica has a support system from the feed companies that is amazing. If you buy Nutramix feed or Hypro feed, you have access to a vet that you can schedule to come to your farm and do an assessment once a month. Nutramix, both of them have semen available, and the price of the semen to get it done is cost effective than if you're doing it in the US. You know,
Yes.
so it is very helpful. The problem I find is to get more farmers to have better management
Mhm.
systems, record keeping, I have a better understanding of why you're doing AI. We've had Lynn Tate from OC Flock on the show that explained that AI is not for improving numbers; it's for diversifying your genetic stock,
Good
so
point.
you can continue to be productive and have better animals, faster growing animals, and you don't end up with with inbreeding and
Mhm.
runted animals, etc. Right?
Right.
We've had one of the co-owners from B&D Genetics on the show talking about the same thing. So we've been imploring farmers in Jamaica not to treat AI as a tool to increase their numbers, but it's a tool to diversify their genetic stock so they have better animals in their herd, right? More
Right.
better quality animals in their herd. And really and truly, we desperately need new, improved genetics in Jamaica because we've been the last time live animals was introduced to Jamaica has been maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Wow.
And AI only started, semen only started 3 years ago.
Yeah.
New semen coming in only started 3 years ago. So over the next 2 years, you're gonna see a lot more quality, better quality animals hitting the ground. It's just that we're not gonna know the real from the genetic side because of the lack of record keeping.
Right. Right.
You know, it's gonna be interesting this year to see what happens at Demby and to see what kind of animals, the improvement in the animals that are showcased at Demby, which is the big
Right.
agricultural show.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna. I'm curious to see how much improvement you see in the quality of the bucks and those that are showcased at Demby, thanks to the AI programs. Because
Mhm.
the big farmers or the more established farmers, they have been doing a lot of AI work. So I'm sure they're going to be showcasing these new genetics at Demby. So it should be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Um, for me, as much as the genetics is brilliant, it's highly important. I think farmers need to more focus on value added products than trying to be a top breeder, or because the market for quality animals in Jamaica, like, the first of all, they're so expensive,
Mhm.
and there's only so many people that can afford them, right?
Right.
But the crossbreeding and the hybrid animals is perfect meat animals. They're perfect meat animals. The meat to bone ratio is just so farmers need to focus more on developing their meat production or developing their milk program so they can create products from milk
True.
that they can put on the shelf, because the goat milk products is an emerging market and it ain't going anywhere soon. It's going to
Mm.
get more popular the more people get educated on the health benefits. So when it comes to expanding goat production in Jamaica, I think the advantage goes to value added products.
I agree. I agree. I mean, that's was the purpose of my visit. Yeah.
Yes. And the how genetics play a vital role in that is in getting genetics that produces a lot of milk from, that helps if for us if we can do AI with some high producing milk from some high producing milk animal, then it helps. So it's to increase our productivity, not really, you know, not about breeding or breeding stock, but if we can increase our milk yield, it's a plus, a big
Yes.
plus. Yeah. And the same goes for people who are into breeding. The better animals they have access to, then it helps. And I think Jamaica can be a hub of quality genetics for the region
Yes.
because we're a bigger landmass and Jamaicans just, there's no question about it. Jamaicans, for the most part, love goats. So I think we can really have a successful goat industry if we can sort out these little things over time. Pretty larceny. I think goat husbandry in Jamaica is really doing better, a lot better than 2 3 years ago.
Good,
Because
good.
information now is easier to
Mm,
get information. Once upon a time, everybody used to keep their operation a secret, the way they do things a secret. You know, um, Now there's YouTube and there is all
mm,
this information accessible to new farmers and young farmers that no, they don't. Nobody can keep any secret from them anymore.
yeah.
I mean, they go buy a goat from an established farmer, and the established farmer's goat just look really nice, and they're not going to tell you. Then they will never tell you what they're doing, why their goats look like that. But now, new farmers saying they can just go online and look it up.
Hmm.
They can sign up for workshops and get tune into iGoat chat. I will tell them everything.
There you go.
We're not scared to tell them everything we've learned and all the mistakes we've made and all the wrong things we've done. We'll tell you all. You know what I mean? So that's it. That's the big plus right now is access to information that's helping young farmers and the ones that are really serious about making it a business. They have access to information to help them grow faster, be better at their management, marketing, their brand, all of that. It's a new times, new world. We have a saying on the farm: "This is not your grandfather's farm. This
Yes.
is not your grandfather's farm." You know what I mean? This is all these new farmers or young in the business. They have a whole different approach to it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of them right now watching us. They have a whole different approach to it than back in the day, 10 years ago. It's a whole different approach. They want to make goat farming sexy and cool. You come, you see Cabo Ranch, you see it operate. It's, there's nothing about that makes you think, oh, when people think goat farm, they think whatever the old school idea is. No, that's not what we're doing.
Right, right.
Um, yeah, so yeah, that's it. Any other concerns you've seen?
No, that's pretty much the three primary things I've seen. Like anywhere in the world, there's always opportunities for improvement.
Okay.
And I would encourage, based on what you just said, yeah, get the young people involved in this. They could, do things like help do the computer, the record keeping that the older people don't want to do. They could do the documentation. So we have another question here.
Yeah, is repetitive good or bad? Consistency is good. So repeating the same thing at the same time, feeding the same thing the same time every day is
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Goats like consistency. On Cabra Ranch at 2:30 every day, you're gonna hear the goats in the house start making noise because they know at 3 o'clock rain is coming.
Yeah.
So they start at 2:30 bleeping and start letting you know that, hey, don't forget about us. It's about that time. It's coming up, you know. And if 3 o'clock comes and nobody show up to give grain, then the whole goat house is in
Oh, goodness.
chorus, letting you know that, hey, it's 3 o'clock. It's grain time. Don't know where you are, but we're here. So consistency is the key, you know. Um, Darren says feed security. No, that's not Darren. Where is
That's Darren.
feed security? Feed security is very important. However, it's also um, directly attached to your operation, as in the size and how you want to scale it. Like, I can't think of myself having 200 animals if I don't know where I'm going to get the feed from. To me, it's kind of a backwards approach. So I would have to figure out, okay, if I want 200 animals, where do I need to put the farm, or where's my source of feed going to come from before I get there? Right. So if you have an operation and you only can feed 50 goats, then you figure out, how do I maximize the productivity of those 50 goats? Instead of saying I want to get to 200, but I can't feed the 200.
Hmm.
I don't have access to grass for the 200, or the cost of trucking in grass or hay is going to business become a non-profit organization or you in debt, you know. So the approach, you have to look at it from that perspective. You can't say you want 100 animals and you don't have access to feed for those, for that 100 animals. So that's my answer, Darren. Feed security is relative to your operation. You know, in Jamaica, that's a big concern, that people can't, that farms can't grow to a certain level because of feed security. But because of Jamaica developed, the people who are into goats don't have access to a lot of land,
Yeah.
because goats is a poor man, small man livestock. It was cattle that was the premium livestock. And the only people that could afford cattle are the people that had money, and the people with money had access to a lot of land. So, you know, whoever was in cattle had a lot of land, and the rest of the massive land space was in government cane or sugar companies' lands, or, you get what I'm saying? So nobody thought about, oh, I'm gonna use 100 acres and raise goats. Goats was the poor man livestock. So nobody was thinking about them when lands were being partitioned up for agriculture.
That's true. It's throughout the world like that too.
Yeah. So I think that's why I strongly believe in value added,
Hmm.
because it's the same approach I try to mimic, think about the chicken production in Jamaica. There's thousands of small chicken farmers with 500 chicken, 1,000 chicken. I need the same approach for goat farmers. I need thousands of goat farmers with 50 goats, 40
Yeah.
goats, do value added, some meat, and then we'll get to a volume that makes sense, that create an industry. Because access to land to have 3,000 goats is far in between. Like, it's, however, if we have thousands of people or hundreds of people like in thousands, because right now I think there's hundreds of goat farmers. But if there's 5,000 that has at least 40, 50 goats, then we're in business. And I think that's the approach to take. I know people up in higher echelon of this business who think they're bigger influencers are talking about, oh, they want, hundreds of farmers, goat farmers with 3, 4,000 goats. It sounds ideal, but to me, it's an ideology that's next to
Yeah.
unattainable. Like the land space and people have access to that type of land. It's not 50 goats, 50 high producing milk goats is a lot of revenue
That's right.
if you have the outlet for it, the market for it. And the market is there. The market is there. You
Especially the
know,
tourism market.
exactly. Yeah, we remember that like they're opening hotel rooms every year. There's new set of hotel rooms in opening in Jamaica. So these hotels gotta be using goat cheese for their
Yeah.
salads, and you know. So if we end up with a solid supply of goat products to these hotels, then they'll start buying because it comes down to consistent supply.
Yeah.
If they
Because
can
tourists like to
consistent,
say a
yeah,
product from Jamaica. Yeah.
yeah. So that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it because I strongly believe in it. That's why we're here, is because I strongly believe that is the way forward. That is the way forward.
I support that.
Yeah, like the meat thing is cool. It's like Jamaicans eat a lot of goat meat. But if you want to be a meat supplier, goat meat supplier to a hotel or a decent supermarket, well, you need thousands of goats to really supply,
Mhm.
because you have to process animals maybe once a week. So you're gonna have to have a serious production system. But if you pool your resources and have a cooperative where people have 50 goats, 100 goats, and they pool it, and you can get
Yeah.
diversify your operation, so you can do some meat and you can consistently do milk and you can sell manure and compost and whatever, then it's doable.
Hmm.
Based on our research, me and Trudy's research, it's doable. That's the
I
way
agree.
forward. All right. Any question, guys, before we get out of here? If you guys have any questions for myself or Robert, we'll gladly take some questions. If not, then we'll call it a night because we're over an hour. So,
Thank you for this opportunity.
yes, sir. It's great having you here and taking the time on a Saturday evening to share your knowledge and have a discussion on our passion, which is goats and small ruminants. We appreciate it and thank you very much. And hopefully you enjoy the rest of your stay. Enjoy the beach tomorrow,
I will. I
and
will.
we look forward to further cooperative work in the future.
Yeah. And I'm always glad to help with this broadcast anytime, being United
Okay.
States of Jamaica.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. That's good to know. If you have any associates that can add any value to what we're trying to do here,
sure.
surely we can invite them on too. Like,
Okay.
information to us is knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
There you
More
go.
information we have, the better equipped we are to manage our business.
Yes.
All right. So thank you very much. And thank you to the beautiful Judy in the background producing. Guys, give a big shout out to our producer in the background. I'm trying to get her back next week, so hopefully she'll be back to showcase her style that you guys love so much. All right, so thank you guys, and we'll see you all next week.
Yeah, yeah.
Respect.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Robert.
Big
We'll talk
big up
soon.
to
Okay.
everybody too.
Okay. Thank you.